Having had a little bit of experience now with it, I find one of the obvious benefits is I have a lot more time for myself. I'm able to read my daily newspaper in depth, and though it sounds maybe a little bit macabre, I occasionally read the odd obituary. Like me, have you ever read an obituary and found out a lot more that you never knew about a person? So with that in mind, I'm not suggesting this is the end. I'm going to assume some of the things that I'm going to share with you tonight you might not already know. So first, a little history lesson. No faces. Gail grew up in Ontario, where she excelled in both school and sports. But before either, did you know she worked as a baby model for an entire photo shoot for Chatelaine magazine? In her teenage years, she was a serious downhill skier.
Hang on, that was from Montessori school.
She was a serious downhill skier at the provincial level and a very competent, competitive sailor. This dedication and work ethic, established at a very young age, has fueled her professional career and her lifelong learning quest. Gail moved to the West Coast when she enrolled at UBC. Many years later, we discovered we were there at the exact same time, both living in the same student residence, Gage Towers, and even attending some of the same raucous floor parties. After graduation, we discovered we both traveled the following year, spending several months in New Zealand. While I was hitchhiking, seeing the islands, Gail, never one to back down from a challenge, worked for several months shearing sheep, traveling with a Maori shearing gang in the wool sheds. Strong and feisty, she soon earned the respect of the locals. After sailing the South Pacific, Gail, a natural-born traveler, continued to crisscross Canada as part of Katimavik, a national youth organization that brings young Canadians together to learn, exchange culture, and help build stronger communities across Canada. She learned French living in Quebec and went on to become a Katimavik leader. This is how she came to Salt Spring, when her Katimavik team was stationed here in the mid-1980s. Gail knew she'd found her forever home on Salt Spring, and this is where we met as new teachers at Salt Spring Elementary in the late 1980s. With both of us teaching grade 6, Gail in the French immersion program, and me in the English program. We, along with Kim Moffat, were in charge of organizing the annual week-long trip to Strathcona Outdoor School for all grade 6 students in the Gulf Islands. This meant we were immediately full-time fundraisers beginning in September. Near the end of the day of our first monthly car wash, Gail, holding a hose, the Petrocan station, turned towards me and absolutely annihilated me from head to toe with water. I knew right then we'd not only be friends, but we'd be very good friends. From that day forward, Gail was my source of fun, partner in crime, so much so our principal, Glenn Woodley, banned us from sitting together at staff meetings. Around this time, there was a very dedicated group of young district teachers promoting outdoor education. We worked together teaching canoeing on St. Mary's Lake, laying out vast orienteering courses, and also building survival shelters on Mansell Farm, all culminating later in the year with our wonderful week of rock climbing, kayaking, and hiking at Strathcona Outdoor School. High jinks was always part of the mix, not so much for the students, but after hours by the adults. I remember returning from my overnight canoe trip to learn some of my colleagues had discovered where the kitchen staff at Strathcona started the very large, we're talking big,
Really good.
delicious oatmeal cookies filled with Smarties. With over 125 campers and a few dozen adults, there were a lot of cookies to be secured in a locked shed. Upon being given a cookie, I asked, "But how did you get in with the padlock?" It seems a few staff, who shall remain nameless, removed the hinges to the shed door, which was brilliant. Once they were replaced, no one noticed or suspected a few cookies were missing. Both Gail and I started our families about the same time, which was perfect for us to be able to share a classroom and teach part-time together. Outdoor education continued to be a big part of what we love sharing with our students. When studying whales, we planned an overnight trip to the Vancouver Aquarium to sleep in the underwater viewing gallery of the killer whale pool. Just weeks before this exciting field trip, we learned the sad news A gray whale had beached itself in front of Moby's pub and died. Off we went. What a great learning experience for students to see close up just how big a whale is. When we returned to class, we worked on finishing our Mother's Day cards. Students were given the choice of what they'd like to draw on their cards. Marie Boudouin still kids me about the cards her daughter Rosalie gave her for Mother's Day, with a dead gray whale featured on the front. Gail's always been at the epicenter of fun and mischief. In my last year of teaching, my staff gave me a bad time for putting up a bulletin board displaying my students' art in the third week of June. I had the background paper up, I had the art up, and I had the empty labels for the students to record their names under each piece of art. But signing them needed to wait because we'd run out of time. We needed to head out the door and head to our swimming lesson at Rainbow Pool. Upon returning to the school an hour later, one of my students noticed all the labels under our art had names on them, but not our student names. Gail had her class each choose a piece of art and print their name on the empty label underneath it. I cracked up, but my students were really quite put out, vowing for revenge, which eventually did happen, but that's another story. Our district then lost Gail for a few years when she and her young family took a year's leave to live in New Zealand, and when she moved to the Salt Springs Center School, where she eventually became their principal, leading a small, talented staff. No one was happier than me when she eventually returned to District 64 and to SSE about 15 years ago. Not surprisingly, in addition to establishing and running Hottie's Hot Dogs in the Saturday market, Gail continued her role as an educational leader and a strong advocate of nature education. After completing her master's degree, she added Spanish to her repertoire by attending immersion classes in Mexico, and she has continued to avidly pursue Pro-D opportunities and implement innovative programs at Salt Spring Elementary. Here's just a few quotes from some of her colleagues. I will always remember and appreciate Gail for her wise leadership and thoughtful problem solving involving school issues. Gail's a born leader who is influential, takes initiative, and follows through on so many things around the school. Gail's been instrumental in transforming the way we teach math at SSE. Other comments were, Gail has rejuvenated the front garden with Catherine and was the catalyst for reviving the garden program at SSE. Gail is grounded in the best interests of children, and that is her compass that guides her. She has been a strong advocate for students and their voice in the school. I feel like she always starts there. I have so appreciated Gail's desire to have fun and keep social activities going, even when it wasn't easy. And finally, Gail's at the top of her game, on the cutting edge of recognized best practices. The incredible amount of energy and investment she has put into continued growth and development in the teaching profession and right up into the end is admirable and something to aspire to. So even though I began with talking about obituaries, this is not the end, Gail, but only the beginning. You're now free to pursue your many passions and continue on your wonderful life journey that no doubt will be the source of many new adventures, lots more fun, travel, and time spent with your kids, Arlo and Helena. It's obvious you'll be dearly missed in this district by your colleagues, your students, and your families. Personally, I'm so looking forward to having a playmate my own age and spending more time together. My dear, dear friend, you only deserve the very best in your retirement. Please, everybody, raise your glass. Here's to Gail.